Oakland A's and not really them on the field at all. We know it's been a tough season, but bigger things, bigger potential on a move to Vegas, move to another city, or is there an outside chance they could stay in the Bay? Casey Pratt's going to be joining us here in a moment. And, Kings fans know this story all too well. They lived it. You lived it. We all lived it. And no one really wants to see teams move. And I hope there's a Hail Mary here for the A's, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case.
No, I'm with you. I 100%. Listen, I love Casey, and I'm really excited for this combo. It's a nice break here. With the Warriors and the Kings right now, the funny thing is, with all the vitriol going back and forth, so many of us are Giants fans or A's fans,
sure,
or Niner fans or Raider fans. There is a lot of infighting in family here, and Casey. What I love about him, and just let me know when he's ready.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
Oh, he is. Let's bring him in right now. From basically what I was saying about Casey, and he's from ABC7 in the Bay Area. Is I really admire and appreciate the fact that he is a journalist, but he has chosen to use his platform and be a human being and show pictures of his family and him and say that he's gutted and plus do some damn good investigative journalism into this whole thing. And it does remind me a lot of what we did up here. So without further ado, Casey, it's Dave and Jason. Good morning.
Hi, guys. How you doing? And I saw that Warriors-Kings banter on social media. That was quite entertaining. But we're all on the same side in this one, I think. So we can unite as fan bases, right?
Yeah, and I think, Casey, what it really comes down to is there are a lot of similarities. You have an owner, much like the Kings did, that's tanking the team. In fact, even really worse on your side right now, on the A's side. You have multiple relocation threats. The difference here, we had Kevin Johnson, a former NBA player, and we had David Stern, a competent commissioner that did not want to relocate. No offense to the Oakland mayor, but that's not Kevin Johnson. And Rob Manfred is a complete toolbox. So what openings do you see currently, even if there's a little bit of crossed fingers in there for A's fans?
Yeah, I just actually for the first time went to Golden One Center, that spectacular arena you guys have in Sacramento, and I noted that it was on Jay Stern Way. And
yeah.
It really hit me. Yes, there was some pretty heavy commissioner involvement in making this thing happen that I don't think is happening in Major League Baseball. All that being said, Rob Manfred is just a mouthpiece for the ownership, and before the owners wanted Vegas, and I just mean the A's owners, he also had a lot of very complimentary things to say about Oakland as a market and how it should definitely be a major league market. And so it's just funny to see how the tea leaves kind of sway back and forth based on what the billionaire owner of the A's is telling Manfred to put out in statements. The biggest opening here, guys, is whether or not they can succeed in Las Vegas. And, at first everybody jumped off the cliff as soon as the news broke, but the more and more you hear about what's going on in Vegas, the more cracks are forming in this whole thing. And I think if they don't get it in Vegas, they're going to have to come back here and sell the team. So,
wow. Can you talk about those hurdles, though? Casey, what's going on in Vegas that is keeping this from maybe becoming a reality?
Well, first and foremost, they want $500 million to do this. And as far as I know, and I've heard from several different sources, and obviously this all can change very quickly, is they don't have the votes right now for that. And so they're going to have to keep lobbying to try to get it done, but they don't have a lot of time. We might know by the first week of May whether or not they're going to have the votes to get this money. And I think that's something that we can eminently track. And so, yeah, it's not a very popular thing when you come in here as a billionaire pro sports owner and immediately demand money. The other thing is it seems very thrown together quickly. Nobody had heard of this site that the A's ended up selecting, this Wild Wild West site. It was always the Tropicana or the Festival Grounds, and then the Rio emerged, and then all of a sudden they bought land at this place. It seems almost as if they had to have land in order to pass the legislation that they needed, and so they quickly gobbled something up because they couldn't get it done in any of the other deals. Why else would you announce a stadium site without renderings or a design firm or any of these other things locked up? Like it all seems haphazard and thrown together.
Casey Pratt, ABC7 Bay Area. Casey, in a weird way, we were discussing this the other day, just even if it's from a PR standpoint, how much in a topsy-turvy world could Mark Davis be an ally to A's fans in this situation?
Yes. He had some very strong comments against the A's in Las Vegas. And specifically, he feels like this ownership group really screwed him over. And it was funny because like people now at the point where people just send me stuff constantly, like, and somebody sent me Mark Davis's comments and I just went on without even reading him. So I was like, I don't care what he has to say. And then when I went back and looked, I was like, whoa, that's not what I expected at all. Yeah. Like it was strong. And so, you guys have to ask yourselves at what point do you have to consider that Mark Davis, yes, he did move the Raiders there. Yes, he was sort of blocked by the A's here in Oakland, but he has the only stadium in Las Vegas, like brand new, nice, full-blown stadium in Las Vegas. And I don't think he's going to want another stadium there competing with Allegiant Stadium, first and foremost. And secondly, like, what kind of sway does the owner of the Raiders have politically in Las Vegas right now? And what other billionaires or rich casino magnates out there are really going to want the A's, playing 80-plus dates at home with 3 to 5 hours where people are not going to be at their casino tables? And so it's interesting to think about what kind of power these guys have. And there's not a lot of really influential people stepping up for the A's in Vegas. Like, remember when the Raiders left, Sheldon Adelson was a huge, huge deal. Yep. And he was the guy that really stepped up and said, let's get the Raiders here and grease the wheel and got it done. No one is doing that for the A's. The A's are the only ones lobbying for themselves in Las Vegas. There's no big power player stepping up and saying, let's make this happen, guys.
Casey, do you ever read on the other owners? Obviously, they're going to look at, what's going to help line their pockets. I understand that. But fans of the A's, maybe people in the region would like John Fisher to sell. They can't make him do it. But do you have a read on what the other owners of Major League Baseball teams think of John Fisher?
Not necessarily, and I'm almost surprised by how much support they've provided him because he is one of the richer owners out there. And if you really look at it, like, what incentive do these other owners have to waive a relocation fee for the A's to go to Las Vegas? That's taking money out of all their pockets. Is the incentive that they could then take the A's off revenue sharing? Is that really enough of an incentive? Because they'd been off revenue sharing before. They were only put back on just recently. Right. I just don't see the incentive, and I don't see the incentive in giving the Giants the entirety of Northern California. You're going to need, I think, 2/3 ownership vote to get a relocation fee waived and probably even to send the A's to Las Vegas. Well, I can tell you right now, without some serious promises of some kind of favor, like the Dodgers, the Padres, the Angels, the Diamondbacks, none of these teams are going to want all of Northern California to go to the Giants. And they're also not going to want their markets kind of encroached upon like the Diamondbacks are going to have happen if they go to Las Vegas. So there's a lot of interesting reasons why I don't see MLB owners being so supportive of this. Plus, let's think about this, right? If the A's end up playing in Las Vegas, they're going to have to play at that AAA ballpark until they get the stadium built. They're talking about adding artificial turf there. 110-degree weather, artificial turf. Do you think the other owners, the Players Association, is going to approve their star players going to play in a minor league park in the dead of summer on turf?
Nope.
But I just don't see why any owner would approve any aspect of this deal.
And also, by the way, they're going to have an NBA franchise, almost certainly an expansion franchise within 5 years, competing for that dollar as well. All right, here's what I want to do, because we've only got a few minutes left. I want to play a clip, then ask you a question off of that, and then I'll wrap it up with you. This was Casey talking to Brody Brazil, not yesterday, not a week ago. This was back in late September, and I want you to hear what Casey had to say to Brody.
I think that before development agreement and community benefit agreement get signed, I think we could see the deal fall apart first and both sides walk away. Just like what happened in Sacramento. I could see them saying,
wait a second. Whoa.
Yeah.
this is a heck of a way to end this video. Wait a second. You're saying, I feel like we've been doing this. You're saying this is going to happen?
And I'm saying when it does, that is also not the end of the world, because that is what happens.
Casey, I'll lose my lunch over that one. Come on. How's explain
that's what happens in a negotiation, right? Have you ever bought a car? I go to a car dealership, right?
Are you a haggler?
I haggle with the salesman. I get their best final offer. I say no. I leave. I give them my phone number. I go to a nearby establishment. I have a beer, and I just sit and wait for my phone to ring. And when the phone rings.
All right. So here's how I want to set this up, Casey. The Kings didn't really get their big break until what you could argue would have been their most devastating punch received, when it was announced that the Maloofs were going to sell the team to Chris Hansen and Steve Ballmer and move it to Seattle. It was terrible. But what KJ had said at the time is they finally have agreed to sell the team. That's our opening. Now you hear the rumors of Joe Lacob having a standing offer. Is there movement there, Casey? Is that offer, do you think, real? And ultimately, is that the key to you to somehow incentivize John Fisher to sell to somebody locally?
Yeah, I'd say you hit the nail on the head there, because the A's just aren't for sale. Like, Joe Lacob does have a standing offer, but you can't buy something that's not for sale. Yeah. And so will this team ever be up for sale? It's possible. I think it's entirely possible that a couple different things happen here. One, John Fisher and the A's succeed in Vegas. They go to Vegas, this thing's a wrap. We all know it's a lot easier to get things done in Vegas. Or two, they flop in Vegas and then come back here and try to get back at the negotiating table in Oakland, but they'll have at that point ceded all leverage, which is why I think they would sell. Or three, they come to terms with either Oakland or Las Vegas and then sell, because now they have a turnkey deal and it'll jack up the price of the franchise. But selling, to me, seems to be the most likely way that the A's end up staying in Oakland. If they go up for sale and somebody buys them that wants to keep them here. Keep in mind, though, they have this deal 90% done in Oakland. So if you're another owner, you could gobble up this franchise, kick back the rest of the money that you need to get this thing locked down, and watch your profits soar, because, like, look what Joe Lacob did with the Warriors. Yep. Took a dilapidated franchise, ran them correctly, built a brand new arena, and now they're worth like $5 billion. He bought them for, I think, $400 million. So that's the recipe for success. And yes, this is why, I was so interested in talking to you and hearing your take too, because I do remember those Kings broadcasts where people were crying on the air and this thing was a wrap. And now I think it was you with tears in your eyes as they made the playoffs. And I'm so happy for you guys. I know it's the whole Warriors Kings back and forth, but I could not be more happy for you. And I could not be more happy for the people in Sacramento. And I frankly was like slightly emotional when I went to Golden One Center. It was game 2, and I was just looking around and how fired up the Kings fans were and how beautiful the arena was. And I was like, man, they did it. Like, this is so awesome that they did it.
Well, I've said this publicly. I'll say it to you. I'm a lifelong Giants fan, but I also know the Giants' hands are far from clean in this whole situation. And it goes beyond team allegiance. It's about community. Casey, I really have admired from afar your work. And I hope you keep it up, and not that me or anyone else up here is the end all be all. This is a different situation. There are nuances. It doesn't mean that because the Kings did it, the A's can do it. You have some different hurdles, but I just want you to know, and I'm speaking for a lot of people up here. There's a lot of A's fans in the 916, and there's a lot of people that care up here. Let's organize, dude. Seriously, let's organize. I think there's some tactical and strategic things that can work. I think this is a salvageable situation, but it's got to be done right. The pressure has to be put on the right people, and I think if it's organized right, and there is the manpower, I think you guys got a fighting shot, and I'm rooting for you. I want you and your family to have that emotional moment in the brand new A's stadium, whether it's at Howard Terminal or somewhere else in the area. So totally want to work together. I think this thing is fixable. I really believe you when you say that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that what you're doing right now is that. It is organizing. It is helpful in, just putting out the information in the platform. Look, I'm being real. Like there's very likely a chance to end up in Las Vegas, but there still are a lot of cracks in this deal at this point. And so just talking about it helps, because, back in the day, people didn't have social media or platforms or ways to to really communicate a lot of the things that were happening, and the fans have more of a voice now. So, just keeping it going, keeping the conversation going is really all we can do.
Appreciate you, brother. Keep up the good work.
Thanks,
and keep those heads up. Thank you, Casey. Thank you to Casey, ABC7. And that's a story we're going to continue to follow that I think hits home for a lot of Kings fans. All right, back to the Sacramento Kings. Jason, coming up next, we got who's hot, who's not.